I'm Carolyne Scott, and welcome to Braveheart Letters. On today's episode, we will be discussing the difference in a boundary and a wall. So, asking AI, the AI overview of the difference in a boundary and a wall. AI says boundaries are healthy, flexible limits that protect your well-being while allowing for connection, whereas walls are rigid, defensive barriers that keep people out entirely and can lead to isolation. Think of a boundary like a gate that can be opened or closed with clear communication, while a wall is solid and is a solid, impenetrable fortress that locks you and others out. So that is what AI says. The difference in a boundary and a wall. Let's see. So we will start with our first Braveheart letter. Okay. Because I couldn't pull it up. Okay, there we go. It's still rolling? Okay. So our first Braveheart letter comes from making__ mischief. When it comes to my safety, 95% of them are absolute walls. I have a one-strike policy when it comes to my safety, and I rarely budge on that. The only time I will are with people I completely trust, and I can count them on one hand. I've long ago made peace with the idea of possibly missing out on a neat experience in favor of safety. As a result, the worst I feel is discomfort and never blaring alarm bells. So that just sounds like that person has definitely chosen safety over like vulnerability. But let me continue to read. When it comes to boundaries, what's helped me is writing out my needs and ranking them. This gives me a solid idea of how strong, flexible, or porous my boundaries should be, when I can budge on them and with whom. The more emotionally safe I'm feeling, the more objectively I can analyze a situation and apply my boundaries. You know what? That's actually true. That's actually very true. The more safe someone feels, the better you're gonna get from them, the better version of them you're gonna get. You're gonna get the real them, actually. Have you ever heard people say, or have you ever known someone that's like super shy in front of strangers, but when they're around their friends, they're the life of the party? That's because they feel emotionally safe. All right, so the last part of that, when it comes to boundaries, what's helped me is writing out my, okay, hold on. I read that part. I try and extend grace to someone if they push a boundary, depending on the person and circumstances. Once can be an accident. Well, let me see. Once can be an accident, twice can be a coincidence, but 3 times is likely a pattern. Facts. As a gay woman, I'm likelier to be flexible with my boundaries than with men. I've had experiences in my life that have caused me to trust men less, and I've had experiences in my life that have caused me to trust women more. Obviously, I can only speak to my own experience. Let's see. Go back. Obviously, I can only speak to my own experience. And I can't paint all men/women with the same brush. It's just what works for me. That was a very insightful letter. It really was. They say when you're reading something, the first sentence literally tells you what the entire body of work is going to be about. And that's true in this statement, because the first sentence she said was, when it comes to my safety, 95% of them are absolute walls. Completely true with everything I just read. This person has chosen safety over vulnerability. And I get it. I do. I understand. But we are here because we are focusing on becoming more vulnerable. So I just suggest that you just keep healing from where you're at. Just keep, building yourself up and keep striving to become the best you, because the more, like you said, the more you're emotionally safe, the better you feel. And the more you are mentally, emotionally intelligent, the safer you'll feel, even in vulnerability. So that's my tip for today. All right, so the second letter, let me see. There we go. This one is pretty short. It's from critical_chemical 401. A wall is being unable to do something out of fear. A boundary is creating an expectation out of respect for yourself. Agreed. I agree. But I also feel that is very surface level. I feel that answer is very surface because the wall is not being unable to do something out of fear, but I would say being too timid to, because I know people that are afraid to do stuff that still do it. They still do it. They still just leap out there even though they're afraid. All right, so that's just my little insight to that one. I feel like that was a little surface level, but all right. So the next one is from Dance Representative 7, and this person says, "Boundary is a spectrum. Some are more rigid and some are more transparent or non-existent. They are all boundaries." Okay, but we need to know the difference in a boundary and a wall. But I appreciate that insight. I appreciate you responding. And the last letter is from Anonymous. Like I said, you guys are allowed to send in your Braveheart letters completely anonymous. I definitely respect that. This person said, "I do agree that boundaries sometimes, when people are hiding from issues or running from conflict, are unhealthy walls. I've run into this where nothing could be worked through because walls put everything at total impasse. To respect those boundaries in myself, I had to walk away. The boundaries was unwillingness to talk about our conflict points, which would have allowed me to address some things such as mildly verbally abusive tendencies, passive aggression, emotional invalidation, deflection, and unmet needs." That was a mouthful. Somebody just, you can't talk about nothing. You can't talk about anything with your partner. Ooh. I do think boundaries were words used as a shield and a way out of self-evaluation, but that's neither here nor there. Also, they're saying their partner used boundaries as like a scapegoat for accountability. That's what this person is saying. Let me see. It would have allowed me in turn to consider my own flaws that I've only been able to speculate upon, but have attempted to do this and learn nonetheless. How she felt silenced, how I felt silenced, and where we lost good faith. To consider all the pressures I might have put this person through, whether or not I behaved narcissistically or if I was manipulative or gaslighting. What she perceives as circular arguments and whether or not she's right or wrong, and is something I should/shouldn't take on board. There was no mutual way to grow there. So this person kind of like went into a personal perspective from a relationship, and I believe it was from a male, and he basically said that this person used boundaries as a way to avoid emotional accountability, and it kind of deteriorated the relationship because they just weren't there. They just weren't there. And that definitely can happen. So I can appreciate this person saying that he cared about himself enough to just walk away. Like, instead of going through emotional abuse of trying to be there for somebody that's not, just not giving. They're just not giving. And I've been in a situation like that where you're the one in the relationship that is actually pouring and your cup is not being filled. So that can happen. I appreciate everybody that sent in a Braveheart letter this week for Braveheart Letters episode 2. What is the difference between a boundary and a wall? So I am going to leave you guys with the exercise that I feel is going to be stimulating for you all. So I want you guys to take out a piece of paper, and I want you guys to draw 3 cups on the piece of paper. Just 3 cups. They don't have to be perfect. It could just be circles, actually, if you like. And what I want you to put in the circles is I want you to put mind, body, and soul in these circles. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down what are the things that you do for your mind? What are some things that you do for your body? And what are some things that you do for your soul? And after you write these things down, I want you to cross off everything that costs more than $5. And then I want you to cross off everything that you do that involves alcohol or weed or some type of substance. And the things that are left are what I want you to focus on this week. And I also want you to expand on them and see if you can add to those cups. My name is Carolyne Sky, and thank you for tuning into Braveheart Letters. All right, everybody. So for next week, the question of the week is, ladies, what is an appropriate and respectful way for a man to approach you? We all say we don't want the catcalls, we don't want the disrespect. So what is the appropriate way for a man to approach you? Tune in next week for Braveheart Letters.